Welcome, everyone. This meeting is for the purpose of having a community discussion regarding tree trimming practices and our electric company utility in the city of Athens. It's not real formal. We will turn it over to representatives from AEP to do a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll open it up to some more discussion and talk about some of the concerns and things that we have going on in the community regarding our tree care. Thanks for everyone attending. My name is Ron Lucas. I'm the Assistant Service Safety Director for the City of Athens. I work in the Mayor's office. I'm also a certified arborist, and I assist with a lot of the tree concerns and tree trimming practices and tree plantings and all things tree as part of my job duties. So I'm interested in the field. There are challenges that we face, and that's one of the main reasons that we're here tonight. I'd also like to introduce some folks in the room. I don't know everyone's name, but bear with me. Paula Mosley, she is the Service Safety Director. We also have some members of the Shade Tree Commission. We have Alvy McWilliams, Emily Wood, John Katowski, Councilman Elahu Ghazni, and I will go ahead and introduce John Buck from AEP, and he can get us kicked off, and you can introduce some of your folks.
First of all, thank you, Ron and Paula, for asking us to come tonight. We appreciate this opportunity to try to see how we can coexist as we try to go forward and provide safe, reliable, and affordable electric service. I have, of course, my colleagues with me tonight. Jeff Rennie is our primary corporate communications consultant. Anthony DeBoard, our customer services representative for the area, includes Athens. Rich Simpson, who is our forestry supervisor. Al Chillicothe has the Columbus region. Tim Saifang is the manager of distribution systems here in Athens. And Steve Stanley, who will be our presenter, is the utility forester. And Billy Watts, who just recently became supervisor of the line department here in Athens not too long ago. Again, thanks for the opportunities. Steve's going to give a presentation, maybe 20-25 minutes. Steve, is that right? As I understand it, and of course we'll follow the agenda according to Paula and Ron's wishes as best we can. And I guess without further ado, I'll go ahead and ask Steve to take over at this point. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? I don't know if I'm going to use this mic or not. I'm going to be going back and forth to my computer. So bear with me. My name is Steve Stanley. I'm a utility forester for American Electric Power. 22 years with the company, 14 of it in the forestry end of it. Let me move this back just a little bit so I can see what I'm talking about. Everybody see that okay? And if I don't use the mic, is that okay? Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. Welcome. Like John said, appreciate the city folks asking us to come and give a little spiel about what we do and what I hope to communicate this evening. It's a little about the AEP Ohio area of operation, the basic electric system, how everything fits together, why we trim trees and remove trees, how we perform the tree work, and the right tree in the right place, it really can make a difference. AEP Ohio area of operation, AEP covers about 2/3 to maybe 3/4 of the state, I think 66 counties. We have about 1.5 million customers, 1,500 plus employees, 9,000 miles of transmission lines, 46,000 miles of distribution lines in 7 districts. And these districts are the Athens district, the Canton district, Columbus, Chillicothe, Newark, Ohio Valley, and Western Ohio. So as you can see, we're scattered throughout the state. The Athens district consists of 135 plus thousand customers in their district, 5,500 miles of line, with 6 area offices: Athens, Gallipolis, Lancaster, Marietta, Pomeroy, and Wellston. Here's kind of a crude map. Some of the counties: Meigs County, Vinton County, a little bit in Lawrence County, Fairfield County, Hocking County, a little bit in Washington. Well, actually a lot. We've picked up the Marietta area in recent years. This is our power map, how it gets from there to here. Basic electric system. So we have A here, which is our distribution circuit. That is mainly what I'm going to be talking about tonight, the distribution circuit. That's our area of expertise here. But there's a distribution station that is fed from a transmission line that is fed from a generation station. And that's pretty basic. Our distribution circuits, they are all named and numbered. So whenever one of our linemen or one of our service people are working on a particular line, they have to call into our dispatch center, and they'll use the name of the line and the number of the line. So that way our dispatcher knows exactly where he's at, and we have information related to that kind of narrows them down to where they're working exactly. And it's all safety related. Our goal at AEP is to provide safe, dependable electric service to you, our customer. To help meet that goal, we must control growth of trees and brush around power lines and other energized equipment. The wrong tree in the wrong place can increase the possibility of power outage or of someone directly or indirectly contacting an energized electric facility or other hazardous situations. It also can delay efforts to restore interrupted service. One tree can affect the quality and reliability of service for an entire neighborhood. Why we control the vegetation. Our guidelines and clearance specifications are geared towards 3 things: safety, reliability, and access. Public safety and worker safety are our highest priorities. Trees can conduct electricity, whether they're alive or whether they're dead. Climbable trees in proximity to conductors pose a real safety risk. Young children, boys like to climb on stuff. It's a bad situation. Homeowners want to maybe do some pruning on their trees. If the electric lines are in the proximity, they could put a ladder into it. Bad things happen. Our worker safety, our linemen and tree trimmers are more at risk when they're performing work when the trees are growing around our facilities. So, we want to try to eliminate that possibility as much as possible. No tree is worth a person's life. Here's a typical right-of-way, obviously that is overgrown. We have a lot of invasive species, plus other hardwood species. You can imagine this. I took this picture on a clear day. It was nice. It was warm. Everything was good. The line was operating fine. But in an ice storm or some kind of a summer storm, you can imagine trying to find, in the middle of the night, trying to find the line, if there's an issue on this line, trying to find it, where the problem is, what the problem is. fighting your way through all this brush. So, our goal is to get all that cleaned out and maintain it, so when we do have an issue with a line, we can come back and identify the problem and get crews to the area quick, which in turn gets everybody in power faster. Here's a tree. Can't really see it very well, but this tree broke off during an ice storm, and it's actually energized. It fell across conductors, and the tree actually is energized. That's fire coming off the tree. Our lines, our high voltage lines, are typically bare. That's why they're so high on poles in the air. There's certain clearances and distances we have to maintain for public safety, and as our line people and our tree trimmers work on or near the lines, they have to stay so many feet away or use special equipment to work on an energized line. But that's typical wire. And this is typical service wire that feeds your house. It's three wires. It's got some protective coating on it. That's mainly in case it rubs against a tree or an animal like a squirrel. If you've ever seen a squirrel run down a line, if there's a pinhole in the protective coating, it could potentially electrocute the squirrel. If somebody puts a ladder against it, it could electrocute you. So, here's another example of a tree that is contacting the wire. The tree's obviously too close to the right-of-way. Probably when the wind's blowing, the wire is displaced, bumping the tree, and it's energizing the tree. Bad situation. Yes?
Why aren't the main lines insulated?
It's probably more of a cost control situation. Go ahead, Billy.
Load, basically the lines are loaded, and the more air, it's kind of basically the more air it gets, it's less susceptible to temperature changes when it's bare. We size our wire to handle the load that we have, but it's not insulated because of load reasons. We do have wire that is insulated for high voltage, but it's just rare occasions that we use that, and that extends the time it takes us to pick it up when it's unfair to that. So basically, they're bare because that helps them, they're capable of handling more load that way.
The wire have to be insulated public run.
Just depending on the load, in county with lots of load, you probably have to have pretty big wire, pretty big insulation. And then, there's places we have, like on the state forest, where we have insulated wire to try, because, they don't like taking the trees out either. But after they're out so many times, they decide, we're going to go ahead and cut the trees. But we can give them a lot of service, so they don't have as many blinks or power outages when we have our right-of-way cleared.
Thank you, Billy. This tree here obviously has some issues, health issues. This is a good candidate to be removed pretty close to the facilities. That's pretty obvious. Service reliability. Trees are the single most preventable cause of power outages and interruptions. If you think about it, somebody driving a car down the street runs into a pole. It's kind of hard for us to control that. A squirrel gets on the line and gets electrocuted, has a power outage. It's kind of hard for us to control that, although we do have mitigation devices that kind of do control that a little bit. But Mother Nature is something we can't control. I wish we could. But probably is a true statement. Our work is geared toward reducing momentary and sustained outages, customers affected, and the duration of the outage. Momentary outages are those outages that you're sitting at home working on the computer, or you're watching TV or whatever. The power goes off all of a sudden. You have a blink, and then it comes back on. And you're waiting. Okay. Well, what happens is on our system we have protective devices that sense when a fault happens on the line. So I'll get my wire here. So if a tree falls on a line like this, circuit out of that substation in a particular year, then the next year there's a circuit up in Elliotsville. There's 2 circuits out of that. We'll plan that for a specific year. So there's multiple circuits around the city that are planned in different years. So that's why that happens.
So
And
there's trimming every year.
there could be on different circuits in the city. Sure. The 4-year cycle, we have a work plan that we work off of. Back in 2009, probably 2008, we sent this work plan to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio to say, okay, this is the circuits we're going to do in 2009. Here's circuits we're going to do in 2010, 2011, right up through. So the criteria for this work plan, we collect data over a period of time to come up with the work plan. Some of the data, a lot of the data we collect are from the linemen themselves. When the linemen have a power outage or when they do circuit inspections, they've got computers in their truck and they can enter what the outage was about. Was it a tree on the line? Was it a squirrel? There's different categories that they can choose from that keys somebody with our company into, okay, is it a hardware problem? Is it a tree problem? Etc. So as the linemen assess the circuits, this data is being built. And also the forestry department. When we go out to patrol circuits, we have our own inspections that we do on the circuit. If the tree's bad, do we need to cut here, do we need to cut there, apply herbicide, whatever the case may be. So the worst performing circuits out of all this data get priority. So at that point, that's where the work plan comes from.
With that in mind, very clear the same circuit for all the years. That shows that there's particular problems.
Well, if that happens, then obviously there's an error in the data that was put in. So that would be investigated. But if there is a situation that a tree, for some reason, was causing outages or multiple trees, then yeah, we would take care of it, but we wouldn't do the whole circuit. It would be what we'd call a hot spot. Okay, we've got a hot spot over here. And the reason that is because, obviously because cost. You can't do every circuit every year because it would be astronomical. Rates would be astronomical. So in order to keep our rates low, it kind of fits into the factors that we have on our system. At any rate, so we got our work plan established. We know what we're going to do in the successive years. So at this point, our contractor, they're awarded the work. So at that point, they send their people out to notify customers. We have several forms of notification that we use. We like to make personal contact if we can. on properties we're going to do work on. If we can't make personal contact, we will leave a door hanger explaining that we're going to do work on your property. If we need to remove trees, there's a door hanger for that also, with a number attached that the customer can call if there is questions. So, and we also do like first to know calls, voice messaging, things like that. Sometimes we do public notices, and sometimes we put it out on the radio. Typically, we try to leave a 3 or 4 week window if we can, unless it's an emergency or hazardous condition. Yes. So you tried several times to get a hold of the number. Okay. Was there a voice message or something like that? Okay. Can't tell you. Couldn't tell you what happened there. But if you get with me after the meeting, we can talk about it. Okay. So at this point, we've notified customers. As we're notifying the customers, we're planning the work. If we have to remove a tree, we paint little red dots on the tree that signifies we are going to remove that tree. If we're going to trim the tree, we paint a blue dot, signifies we're going to trim it. And like I said, it sounds like you've had some issues with maybe getting a hold of somebody, but a customer can call a number and get back with them. They voice concerns about removals or the trimming being done on the property. At this point, we got all that. We got all the notification done. Like I said, 3 to 4 weeks later, the tree crews come in. They have a general foreman that basically explains the scope of the work, takes them to whatever part of the circuit we start at, and they obviously do the work. While the work is going on, they're working down the circuits. Myself and the general foreman usually go behind to check out the work, what they're doing. They're making good cuts. Once we get the right-of-way cleared out, there may be a tree that leans way out over that wasn't marked. Well, maybe it's going to be a hazard in the near future. So we identify that, go to the property owner, hey, we've got a situation here where we probably need to trim this tree back a little more, or maybe it's a tree we didn't even mark. So at that point, we assess that. And then once we go through the circuit, once the circuit's done, everything's good, we do a quality control audit, which basically we're making sure that we got the proper distances from the wire. Again, we're looking for proper cuts, make sure there's no tears on the trees. And if there are, the contractor comes back and fixes that at their expense. If there were skips or misses, the contractor will go back and fix that at their expense. So it's quite a process. We make sure that, we're getting what we're paying. And like I said, the standards that we try to follow those standards as much as we can, unless there's a safety issue. And here's just some pictures of work we've done. A row of white pines that we took down. White pines are extremely susceptible to weather, ice and snow and wind, so they're good ones to get away from the line. Here's a worker. Trees and brush removal. Tall growing species of trees, danger trees, and incompatible brush are targeted for removal. Brush left in the public right-of-way is cleaned up. Sidewalks, ditches along county roads, things like that, you know, we have to clean it up. Brush left in a private right-of-way in a maintained area, we clean it up also. If it's somebody's yard, backyard, if it is a maintained area, we will clean it up. Same way with the ditches. If it's in a ditch, we get it out of the ditch to make sure we don't impede the flow of water. And in a non-maintained area, we windrow the brush. Non-maintained area is a woodlot or a overgrown field or something where obviously hadn't been maintained. Low-growing species of trees and shrubbery are left for the wildlife, food and cover, windscreens, buffers, aesthetics where possible. And I kind of made the where possible a little bigger because if it's in a backyard and it's planted around the right-of-way, if we need to get in there and fix something, a lot of times you're tramping over people's shrubbery and you're kind of trying to work around that stuff. And it's hard to work around it without, especially if it's in the night or if it's bad weather. It's hard to work around it without, basically tramping over it. So I guess kind of keep that in mind when you're planting in backyards. The final goal is safe, reliable power. And
Steve, if I may, did you say that the 3 is removed, whereas we've been told it's upon the size and the logs left over the yards?
yeah, well, I'm talking about the chipping, the brush chipping. I'm not talking about the wood, the actual big pieces of log. If we remove a tree, there are situations where we could potentially remove the wood, but we don't. It's not a general practice unless it's in the public right-of-way, and we discussed that with you beforehand. If it's in a public right-of-way and we want to remove a tree, obviously you guys are contacted and say, hey, we want to remove this tree.
For private property owners?
Private property owners, if we cut a tree down, if it's in a maintained area, we'll chip all the brush and the wood we stack around the stump. We don't consider the big pieces of wood brush. Brush is like the limbs that we trim off of the tree. Well, it depends. Some of our chippers can chip some pretty good stuff. Some of them can chip probably maybe an 8-inch long. But I mean that's kind of rare that we chip that big of stuff.
So if you come to my house and you put one of my trees down, why should I be responsible for removing the tree and chopping it?
Well, it's not our tree. I mean, it's affecting our power line, but it's not our tree.
Cut it down.
We can't just take people's wood off their property. And I mean, that's what happens.
So if you're saying that it's not your property,
Right.
you make the decision to cut it down.
Right. It's impeding our facility. Exactly.
But you're not responsible for removing it afterwards.
As far as the wood, no. Now we'll chip the brush. We will chip the brush.
You say it's not their property, how can we go onto that person's land without their...
Well, we have right of ways that go across private property.
Steve, let me ask you along the same line. One of the earlier photographs showed a large tree with a line basically right next to it. How does that happen? I mean,
You're talking about that?
yeah, how does that happen? I mean, why would you let that tree get that large?
That's a good question. Maybe it was there before the line was. Maybe the property owner, for some reason, had an issue. Maybe we just haven't got there yet.
We had to go there 4 years ago.
Well,
That's the reason to grow that.
yeah, the 4-year plan was just implemented in 2009. So that's a process.
But, I guess the issue, one of the issues for me is, that's going to be an issue down the road. Let's deal with it now, not down the road.
Exactly.
Because if you come in and you cut these trees and they look terrible, then you just have people unhappy.
Exactly.
Deal with it up front.
Exactly.
Let's not let it get to this point.
I agree. I agree 100%. Yes.
I have a question, I apologize.
Okay.
You talked about the fact that you are on site along with the foreman.
Not all the time. Not all the time.
You and arborists.
Am I a certified arborist? No, I'm not.
So I guess my big question is, and I don't think anyone is speak exactly how very knowledge of
Okay.
simply because we haven't organized. But the idea of sort of a master plan of how we're going to deal with these trees in our community, in my neighborhood, for 8 years and I've lived there, we pretty much have these trees that have been chopped out. So not only are they unhealthy and unsightly, but it seems to me they come back and continue to do the same thing.
Right.
And I've talked with the group who are doing it many times, and there isn't ever an arborist available. And they're pretty much one man told me a couple weeks ago, I went back 2 times, I was walking the dog, and he said, I just really want to get into development school. So his goal was, that was the job he was doing right then, but he wasn't particularly skilled at it. So that whole concern is that do we have a master plan about how we're caring for the trees in the city, knowing that we have to have electricity lines running through to provide energy? And how is that plan implemented? How do we secure the fact that it's actually followed? On the state street this year, 3 ash trees were removed because earlier the job was so bad, and the landowner said they just came back and they said, remove them. So they knocked out 3, not the most attractive area to begin with, so the trees are really important for aesthetics.
Sure.
The habitat gathering.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the mature trees around our high voltage lines, there comes a point where you can't make proper cuts per se and not get your clearance from the electric lines is basically what it boils down to. So if you have a young tree or a crabapple or something that's not going to grow up into the line, then it's not going to be an issue. But when you have large ash trees that are close to the line, or soft maples, or elm trees, or something like that are pretty mature trees, 50 years old, 60 years old trees, and I know that's not anywhere mature as far as in tree life, because mature trees can get really big. But at some point, it's going to be a really safety issue with the line.
So at what point do we actually get an arborist?
We have arborists on the property. Several of the general foremen are arborists that work for Athens, who is our contractor at the current moment. My boss is an arborist, and I know several AEP arborists. And I've been around the business long enough that I understand, my degree is in engineering, but I understand how trees grow and how proper cuts and things like that. One thing we have to remember is we're an electric company. We're not a tree company. We're an electric company. Our first priority is to maintain the operation and the safety of the line. So once that's done, then, you know, if we can trim the tree proper, the arborist way, and get proper clearance, then we're good to go.
You mentioned high transmission line. Is there something that, you know, a map available citywide, so you know what's deemed high transmission, and what's, there's something I can see with that local transmission?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's probably a question for Tim.
What's the other besides high?
Pardon?
Energized.
Energized, high voltage distribution lines.
I might say that David Ingram, chairman is able to distinguish those.
Okay.
And always keeps that in mind when the city is doing it.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking maybe just so that private property owners can, as they choose their landscape.
Sure. That's a good point.
This work plan that's DUCO approved, is that ever put out for public comment in advance? Does it actually show your tree techniques on what gets filed?
You know, I don't know if the utility commission puts that out or not. Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty meaningless when it comes to customers, because a circuit could be hundred miles long, or it could be 80 miles long. Customers don't know where they're at, the circuit or not. I mean, knowing the work plan, is going to be plus, the work plan changes. Always change by the course of the year.
Do you guys go back to DUCO then for revisions to the work plan?
They don't approve our work plan.
I thought it was DUCO.
They see it, you give it to them, but they understand that service they put on and take it on. But of course, it should be liability issues.
If we were able to get a map of the system in the city of Athens, we would be able to tell what properties would be kind of using GIS now, for sure. We just don't have the data. It's something that we've asked for in the past, and there's,
I know, yeah, I know it's been discussed a little bit.
and we knew what circuit number it was, we would say, okay, Steve calls me up and says,
I think there's confidentiality issues is why I have to do
that's
that.
that's expressed.
You know, and I don't know.
If you're wanting to know kind of the general plan, the geographic area where we're trimming, we can do that.
I get that. I get a hands-on map of what's going on, and which streets will be closed, and what streets are going to be affected. That's something that we do get, but it's hands-on. I can't really tell if your house is going to be affected, or your house or my house is going to be affected from that. It's just a red line down the street.
Or
that says right there.
I'll be honest with you, we're a little concerned about giving a system map out that shows details of where everything's at because of security concerns. Wasn't we were thinking that, there's somebody on the commission to do it. However, to get what you're looking for, we can probably do that without giving a map that shows every detail of the circuit and all that. We can probably do that.
Great. If we can have, we can share that with neighborhood associations or something like that. When we do a survey, people will know in advance what's going to happen.
I would say it would probably be multiple maps because there's a lot of lines in the city.
I've dealt with that a little bit in the city, and the street light issue. And the mapping, we don't have the ability to provide that in GIS format. However, we can provide the maps, but there is a cost to that. By the time you get the majority of the city maps, it's rather significant. I was sending an email to Mr. Stone, the city a few months ago, and it wasn't something that he was interested in, given the cost. It did add up relatively. But I mean, that is an option, if that's something that you guys want.
Separate or more advanced than what you had offered?
On
right.
I look at my deed and I can't see where it says event easement. I'm sure you do because
Yeah.
there's a hole there and a line there. And you would put it in it and have an easement, right?
Right. Yeah, a lot of the easements do not show up on deeds. I don't know why that is. Like, it probably should, yeah. I think years ago, I mean, a lot of our easements are very old, and you know, they didn't incorporate them on the deeds.
I feel compelled to bring this up too. You can look and you can see our power lines. And the basic idea is to try to stay, remember what kind of tree you want to plant, stay, you know how tall it's going to be, so you can stay away from the power line and plant it. But also we have underground power lines. So, when you do plant a tree, I'd like you to prepare and make sure there's no underground facilities also, because that could hurt you also if you dig into an underground line. Okay?
Yeah, there's an underground easement also, not allowed to build or put any structures.
Does AEP want to go underground? You have the option. It costs money or long-term, I think underground might be cheaper.
Well, it's surprising that you mentioned that because the underground cable faults too. With the heat build up generation in the line, and over a period of time it will fall also. So, you're digging up tree roots and killing trees that way, or you're cutting trees back for the Pardon? Well, and then you're getting into cost, more cost. I mean, a lot of money. I know the subdivisions that we put in nowadays, a lot of them are underground. A lot of them specify that, hey, we need to be underground. So, and that's fine. But the existing facilities, it would be astronomical.
I'd like to go back to the work plan. We have a city that we know that has been impacted by this trimming for many years. And we really need to have a work plan so we can look at those trees and say they need to be removed. They've been really impacted greatly by past trimming and planting. And we also need to have some kind of professionalism in the approach of trimming trees. And I think that that's been greatly lacking this year. The trees were really hacked away badly. And this is an urban forest that impacts aesthetics, our economic value, our climate, urban heat effect, the ability to migrate birds and different animals to come through. It affects the economic structure of our community. So it's really been done, in my perspective, very unprofessionally for many years, and we need a way better approach to this. And I think that AEP certainly, if you're going to contact with a company, there can be certain demands and work plans laid out. People are educated, people have the ability to do that. And I don't think that we should continue to accept what's happened to our canopy. We're surrounded by forests, but our urban canopy is completely impacted and unhealthy. And we kind of same people, we talked about this at the table for years. Same gentleman at the table a couple of years ago. Response?
Like I said, mature trees, I'm assuming you're talking about mature trees.
I'm talking about like chopped off trees in my neighborhood. This year they went on Elmwood in the first line, and we have, now it's a unilateral tree, not bilateral. There are trees on East State Street, big, beautiful state trees that, a non-educated person should not be allowed to.
Unfortunately, there are mature trees, and to get the clearance that we need, we have to cut them.
Who makes that decision?
We do, I do.
You do. So you're walking these streets
I've trimmed that neighborhood multiple years over the period of my tenure with AEP, and I know that area very well. There's a lot of large trees in that
The
area.
solution would be to remove all those trees and replant the trees that are compatible.
Yeah.
You can't take a tree, Mother Nature wants it to be 8 feet tall, trim it down to 25 feet, and expect it to look good. That's just,
And that is
the
what
best thing to do would be to remove those trees and replant the new trees that are not going to have any problem. The trees, unfortunately, are long over the plant. Whatever plant you're doing, they just all off.
They're probably planted 50 years ago.
I think that like, we have so few really good trees in this city, and the few trees that we do have that are good should be done with great care and professionalism. And those top dog trees that have been destroyed for over a decade or three should, in my suggestion, would be removed and replaced by very collective time.
Sure.
Since they were by good size.
And we've done that in the past. On the public right away. We've done that.
I would like to clarify something, and this is an echoing of Lee's, I think, in a way. We're focusing a lot on ANSI standards and ISA standards and things like that, and they're exactly what they say, they're standards. And if you do trim a tree, you can trim a tree to standards, and it won't look very good. You can do that. It's standards. So I think that in conjunction with a plan where we're doing some tree trimming, that the trees that we're going to keep, you don't even need to focus on ISA standards, but we need to develop a set of aesthetic standards as well. Let's see.
I agree. I mean, as long as it meets, our clearance requirements.
Sure, I
That's
mean,
no
some
problem.
trees are going to go away, and I
Right.
understand that, but there's some trees that we can do some
Sure.
creative cutting techniques that will look better than some of the, they're cut to standards, yes, and
Right.
like inside of the tree, and that's standard,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't look good.
Another thing we discussed for future is to trim during dormant season.
Sure.
Is that something?
Yes. Yep.
You get a slight trim of the tree, and that might be your guys' clearance to make your point where maybe your slight trim of the tree, and you better trim the drill with it, so they're just hacking the whole side of your tree off.
Well, in a situation like that, the tree's probably a good candidate for removal. I know the situation you're probably talking about, like a pine or a spruce, something like that. It's a good candidate for removal.
If I may say a few things here, my part of the business is keeping your power on, okay, which is important to me, and I'm sure it's important to you. There's nobody in here that loves trees more than I, okay? I moved to this state from down south because I wanted to live in the big tree country. But trees and the power lines do not mix. I mean, if the trees are on the power lines, your power's going to be out. Not only is your power going to be out, but if there's lots of trees, we can't get to the lines, okay? When I first came here, the forestry program that we're doing now was not here. We'd have an outage, and we would try to walk the right-of-way, and you could not even see the line. We had miles of line. We had no idea what was causing the power to be out because we couldn't even see the line. We've got to have the right-of-ways cleared to keep the power on. If there is a problem, to find the problem and then fix it.
You got one single tree in the yard that's like a tree in your yard, and there's trimming, and then to me, there's overkill on trimming the tree. It's just a willow tree. I know you might be trimmed her up to the top, but to me, that's one of the deals.
Well, and I can understand how you feel that way.
That's the only tree in that whole 3 acre yard. And you can go up and down the whole road and not a single other
I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel about that. But there's a couple of things that we look at. Number one, we're on a 4-year cycle. Okay?
What happened to all the other trees up around that same roof and everything? But we all of them went out.
I don't. We can get with you after like that and figure out where you're at. And I'm not sure where you're at, and maybe figure out what happened there.
Yeah.
But we want the whole lines trimmed. Now, I do say, if my servicers go out there and there's a tree burning in the line, or there's a tree that's, you know, in danger of knocking the power out, we'll get with Steve, give him the location, and he'll go trim that tree. And that's kind of like an immediate fix to keep the power from going out.
Or the servicer may do it while they're there.
Yeah, or you
They
know,
have
one of my
that
guys
option to
may
do it,
trim it
yeah.
if he can do it safely. But
When you're back on the back and fix the 2-foot rust that he put in my yard or something.
After the meeting, we'll talk.
yeah, we'll get
talk.
together and find out what the issue
It's hard
is.
to answer questions when, you know, we're kind of blind.
You know, but we like trees too, but the trees and power lines do not mix. And I would rather trim the tree or remove the tree than when it's 0 degrees in the middle of the night, the line go out, and you have to deal with the cold weather, and my people have to deal with the safety of getting out there and getting that power line picked up.
I don't think you're responding to the question. The question is, can we know we need to have electricity when we have deadlines? This can be done with care and professionalism, and we historically not seen it done that way in this community. At least from my perspective. And when we're in this mentioned as well, and I've heard it from other people, people came to me and said, look what they did to our trees this year. So that's what we're saying. Just because it's a poor community and we have a history of forest extraction and all of those things does not mean it can be just cut back without care and professional.
We have a lot of professionals that work for us.
Where's the lapse in all this?
Sounds like you're wanting something that we can't deliver. I mean, we're trying to get the power lines clear of the trees. And like Ron said,
When that tree was planted,
like Ron said, you can trim a tree properly. It may not look good, but it's trimmed properly. So, you know. Sure.
I have to say that tree trimming by Aspen is actually approved by and this year I went around just yesterday with Dan Bonner, who's the back part of the Natural Resources and Resources Forester,
unfortunately. Yep.
I have one concern. I think that some of this bell-shaped, U-shaped, these definitely leaves. But I've seen instances where there have been a lot of talking, and then when you come back to do this type of pruning, you had to cut out a pretty big piece of wood. And my understanding is that to cut is more than 4 inches. If that spot is likely to rot before it gets over.
Well, if you cut into that branch bark ridge, it doesn't give the tree an opportunity to heal over, then you may be susceptible to rot. Sure. The tissue of that tree, where the branch comes out of the tree, the tree technically will heal itself.
It's my understanding that if it cuts more than 4 inches, it will rot before it even
You're talking 4 inches in diameter?
yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that of you, Rich. Yeah.
This was from Denmark, and I think it's on the basis of some research that has been done by Forrester.
Sometimes it's better to make one cut, 4 inches, and say half a dozen.
Well, I guess my concern is that there is something clear-cut cuts that over the years now, this is necessitated bigger cuts, whereas there have been more pruning back to a large car for years.
Right.
That's my
So, well, there again, I mean, in the past, I imagine there has been some horrific cuts. That's not been good for the tree. The trees have got rot in them over the years. So, you know, a mature tree gets to the point where it's kind of lived its life and it's a good candidate for removal.
When we don't 4 years like it, we'll help situations like that. Because in the past, when it was 10 years since we trimmed that tree, so a lot of branches weren't like we don't 4 years like it. Branches that are really long, those are about 4 years old. Small.
Smaller cuts. Okay, here's a right of way. I mean, this is what we all want a right of way to look like. We have to get in there and fix that right of way or assess it, do maintenance. We're good to go. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously in the country, but you know, this kind of right of way speeds up the duration of the outage. It's pretty good. Talk about storms a little bit, and that goes along with that right of way. Properly cleared right of ways can dramatically reduce the severity and the duration of outages and reduce the amount of human suffering caused by natural disasters. Some of the recent storms we've had in years, pretty bad. It's bad on us as a company, it's bad on our employees, and it's hard on the customer. And here's some pictures of some of the devastation. You know, imagine a line crew pulling up on a situation like this, where you've got to get the branches clear of the electric facility, dealing with the ice. Obviously, it's cold. Here's another situation. I mean, these are typical situations that we find when we go out and patrol the area once the natural disaster has happened. And it's a lot worse in town because you have the houses and the streets and, you know, the snow plows pushing the snow everywhere. The access is horrible. So when you're sitting at home thinking, when's the power going to come back on, we're working at it. Here's a situation in Ohio somewhere. I don't know. It's not one of my pictures, but this is pretty devastating. Plan before you plant. Plant the right tree in the right place. I brought some booklets in. I'm sure some of you have seen these before. It kind of gives an overview of how to plant, what to look for when you plant. It's got species of trees that you can plant that is good to plant near power lines. Gives kind of a planting profile of what size tree needs to go in what situation. It's kind of a helpful little booklet. There's several up here. You guys are welcome to take them. That's pretty good information. And here's trees planted in the wrong spot. You've got a transmission line here. Somebody probably planted that along a property line or something. But 10 years, maybe less, going to have some issues. Same situation here. Trees planted in the right place. Easy access for us. Gives some shade, some beauty. And that's the end of my presentation. Any other questions?
I'd like to make a comment regarding communication practices with the city and with AEP Aswan. Over the course of my involvement with the ability of trees, the communication has gotten a lot better. From what I discussed earlier about getting the maps and the circuits being clear, although it's not perfect, it's progress. Also, I've found myself kind of almost become a liaison between the community residents that might have a concern about a tree and with AEP or ASPON, the contractor. And that's been a good way for a number of residents to communicate with ASPON and get that direct one-on-one interaction, because I have success getting response from ASPON. So I think that we're moving forward in regards to that type of communication that we need to be at to make sure that we can make better decisions regarding the types of cuts that we do and maybe have the steps of the tree managed in order to keep the power on.
Well, we appreciate that, and we want to work with you as much as we can. We don't want any more issues than you do. Any way we can do it, we're willing to work with. And you've been great to work with. Appreciate all your help.
And there's difficult decisions. There are a lot of times that you look at a tree and it's a good, healthy tree, but it's encumbered by power lines, and you have to make those tough decisions sometimes. I don't want to see a tree go away, but sometimes it's the right thing to do. Sometimes it's not.
Right.
It's a case by case basis.
Yep. Really is.
See, I think there needs to be more, I think the idea that if the tree was happening every 4 years on the whole property, it isn't. But I think it's still going back to that big tree that was there. And if that tree was there and the power line came, it seems like that tree should have been dealt with the day the power line, because it's a lot more difficult now to deal with it. The power line right next to it.
Yes.
And so I think that what we ought to be doing is starting to look at the community and some of these trees and think about succession planning and putting
Yes. Yes.
destroying private property. I mean, it just seems like there ought to be, and it may be something that takes quite a bit of time, but we ought to be doing it. We ought to be getting the private people together with the city and with AEP and starting to talk about how do we solve this.
Well,
these individual problems.
I've been working with Ron for years. We've planted some trees around the city. I know one year we planted 30 trees. We had bought 30 trees, and I think Albie was involved in that with Ann Bonner, and so we've tried some of that, and it's worked out great. And more of it needs to happen.
I agree with John and what Lorraine was saying as well. Have a plan where we're able to look. We're getting ready to do our fall planning here in about a month. We should probably review that and look at where exactly we're going to plant those trees. I mean, that's we identify sites, but do we identify everything in that site that we need to take into consideration when we plant a tree, particularly overhead power lines, proximity to the home or underground utility?
Water line.
Those are things that we should probably do a little bit more consideration of before we just go and do the fall planning.
I do want to say, I heard what you said, Ron, you continue to use the term grade. That is not what I feel. Because I am the opposite of complaints. But I do think we move forward, as John has suggested, look at this more comprehensively, at least for our city of Athens. And I think the dormant cutting season will have the same effect for, eyes and the visual effect that occurs.
And it's healthy to feel free.
And I just have to say I can't believe you discouraged tree planting. I grew up planting pine trees. I'm not,
Well, I'm not disparaging it. Just don't do it near power lines. Very dangerous.
I cover the city of Columbus all the way up to Mansfield, all the way south of the river. And I cover a lot of towns, century commissions, and things like that. We're always interested in working together with the cities to make the cities better. But going forward, we don't want to keep moving the city of trees. What we'd like to see is get rid of those old trees that are problems, put the city in, and replace the trees with good trees along and stuff. Several cities have done small projects, removing rows of trees, and give the city back. We'll cut them down and give them the replacement trees, put them down. We don't do the planting as a city, better than that kind of stuff. The cities will contact homeowners, walk around, the reforest of the streets, like trees. Always will do that. That's good stuff. We want that as much as anybody. Once that tree, because a lot of customers don't look up and find the tree, and they'll go back and put a silver paint back in it. But if we replace it with a light tree, put it with crowds, or service areas, or areas, or whatever. So as long as those trees live, they'll be silver painted. So, people that take our jobs in the future, they look down the street and say, somebody was thinking when they planted this tree. Instead of going out on the street, yeah, pine trees, it doesn't have to, we can do this anytime. We don't have to go off the work plan to do a street. Pull crews off, do the street lined up, if you want to clear, replant. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
Staff an invitation to go to future further discussion.
No problem. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your attention.
Thank you.